welcome back to my channel. Today I'm joined by my boyfriend Lewis again.
Hello everyone.
And we thought that in today's video that we would talk about a few ways that you can save for a house deposit.
Yep.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We have a few different tips and ideas that we personally did in order to actually save up for our very first home. And we've been in our home for around about a year and a half. Just over a year and a half now. So we thought that we would share our experience and the tips that we did to acquire our home.
Yep.
But before we get into that, I'm actually really quite cold. I might go get a jumper first.
Yeah, I'm pretty cold too. I might go get mine.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Ooh, so nice and warm now.
Well, that's better.
We would like to give a huge shout out to our friends over at the Oodie for hooking us up with some really cozy, nice, warm jumpers for the cooler months and cooler seasons here in Australia.
Yeah, definitely.
So I actually chose the Panda design. I'm going to sit up a little bit so that you can see how big it actually is. It is absolutely huge.
They're huge.
They're massive and they're so nice and soft. And the best thing about the Oodie, in my opinion, is the pocket.
It's the big pouch.
Is the huge pouch. You could put snacks in there, you could put drinks in there, you could put your phone in there, whatever you like. Now, the Oodie has actually hooked us up with a $30 discount for you guys. It's just budget millennial 30. So if you would like a Oodie and look as cool as we do, feel free to use that discount code to get yourself an Oodie to keep nice and warm over the cooler months.
Yep, thanks Oodie.
Thanks Oodie, we really appreciate it. All right, so the first thing that we kind of wanted to talk about was not necessarily a way to save money, but a understanding about saving for a house deposit and the fact that this process will take a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's not something that depending on how much you earn and what your job is.
I feel like it's it's all relative depending on how much you make. Because if you say you earn $200,000 a year, then you're most likely going to want a more expensive house.
Yeah.
So the time frame I find from talking to other people is usually the same.
Yeah.
Because if you're on a medium to low income, then that kind of restrains your budget as well. Yeah. So I guess what you're saying, just have a realistic time frame.
Yeah, and I think that the time frame, this is an average or our kind of idea would be 4 to 5 years. It's not something that, again, if you were a really high income earner and you wanted to purchase in an area that the housing was more affordable, then obviously you'd be able to get into the market a lot quicker. But like Lewis was saying, if you earn a higher income, you're more likely to want a bigger house, a better house, that kind of thing. But I think that a lot of people have this sort of understanding that a home deposit is something that you can save up within 1 or 2 years. And I don't think that
I reckon that's possible.
It is possible to
if you're in a couple and you're super frugal for 2 years and smash it out.
And if you lived at home, because rent is almost the same price as a mortgage. So if you were at home, obviously that money would go straight into your house deposit. Yeah. Rather than being spent on rent.
Yeah. But I guess the main thing would be to not feel like there's any certain
pressure, a time.
There's certain time restraints on when you should have it saved by. For me, it took a really long time, 5 years, I think, to save for a house deposit, and then you helps chipped in as well. Yeah. So combined, it would have taken a few years, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think my sister, who she bought herself, her home by herself, and I think it took her, again, 4 to 5 years, and she's a single person, and she was able to buy a house by herself, but because she was solely relying on her, it took her a little bit longer to get into the market. Yeah. And I think that in Australia as well, there's this huge conception that everyone has to buy a home, and that if you haven't bought a house by your late 20s,
it's what's wrong with you?
Not really there's something wrong with you, but why don't you have a home? Why do you not want to buy a house? And I think that's you can buy a house when you're 30, 40, 50, whenever you like. It just depends on...
Or not at all.
Or what your priorities are.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
All right, so the next thing that we want to talk about is doing your research. And I don't just mean a really quick Google here and there. I mean a thorough, over a time period, doing your research, not only on the area that you want to live in, but also the kind of homes that you can afford within that area.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I guess that's kind of what we did, but we did it towards the end of when we had the deposit of like what type of place we wanted, bedrooms, location and stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess it would make sense to do it at the start when you're like first starting to save the deposit.
Yeah.
But I just realized like when I started saving, houses were much cheaper.
Oh,
so
yeah.
like by the time, if it takes you 4 years to save a house, then the kind of goalposts move further away.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Sometimes.
So it's really hard to like gauge it in the beginning because it's always like moving.
But I think that you need to have a rough sort of idea on what you need to save towards. Because if you've got no idea on what you want to save towards, then you'll lose the motivation a lot quicker because you've got no end goal.
Yeah.
Like you've got no end point or midpoint or quarter or whatever. Like you've got nothing to work towards rather than just saving money.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that as well, what really helped us to, like, obviously we had already saved, but I would still, even if we didn't buy a house, I'd still be doing this anyway, is to go and actually have a look at the homes and see what your money can get you.
Yeah.
You might find that you actually need to look in different areas or different suburbs because you might have this perfect idea of living in a particular area or like suburb. And then you go to those home inspections with obviously no intent to actually buy them, but just more have a geezer and have a bit of a look. And you don't get nearly as much home as what you could in another area that you maybe haven't even thought of because you were so set on this particular location and suburb.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like what you said, it's good to have a frame of reference.
Yeah.
Even if it might not be correct, like a few years down the track. And I definitely like reckon it's worth maybe going into suburbs that you might not have thought about initially. Because I mean, it's just the way it is in Australia at the moment, especially in like major cities. You're kind of like
Melbourne.
priced out.
Yeah.
Like in inner suburbs.
Yeah.
So I guess that's just the way things are kind of now. Like you just have to move further out or maybe even move to like regional towns where you can get really good bang for your buck.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So I guess it's also like challenging like where you want to live and where you can realistically live and even maybe like moving further out. Like if your like work can allow it, like working from home now, it's like really allowed people to move remotely.
And I think people are starting to really change the way that they view buying a house now and like saving up for a house because they want to get a home that they'll really enjoy because they're able to work from home.
Because you're spending so much time in the house.
Yeah, and like but you want to do that though. Like you don't want to just buy a home to buy a home. Like you want to actually really have a connection to the house and really like the house when you buy it. But I think that in order to actually save money towards a home, like a home deposit, you need to know what you need to save for, like what you're saving for, like the amount, whether it's 50,000, whether it's 100,000, whatever kind of deposit that you want. You need to go out and actually see what it looks like. Whether that be a $30,000 deposit, you might be looking at a really small unit or an apartment, or it might even be like a huge block of land in regional Victoria that you could then build a house on. So you need to actually go out into the world and see what your money can get you before you actually start saving towards the house deposit.
Yeah, and I reckon that will also kind of give you like the motivation to start actually putting it into action and like saving the money.
Yeah, because you're seeing it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, if you can see it, then it kind of becomes more of a reality in your mind maybe.
I think that's what happened to us too.
Yeah, definitely.
Like once we actually started, I mean like it was really hard to stop, but that kept us super motivated to actually buy the home because we realized it was something that we liked to do, but once we had actually started looking, it was something we really wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like we really wanted to buy our own home. Yeah. And realestate.com, domain.com.au, they're both really fantastic websites to go and have a look at. You can look at the buy tab as well as the sold tab to see what homes are being sold for in like the past year or so. And like you might see that homes are either decreasing in value, increasing in value, or being pretty stagnant. But you need to be looking at those kinds of websites to also get an idea and understanding of how much you need to save for.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so the next one to actually save money for a house deposit is reevaluating your lifestyle and your spending.
Yeah, 100%.
This is a huge one, and this is the one that will actually get you to save your actual income to put towards a house deposit.
Yeah, I reckon this is like by far the most important thing on the list personally, because this is where like the rubber hits the road and you actually put in like a system to save money like week after week, month after month, year after year. Because if you don't make those sacrifices, maybe not go out as much, don't go on those like holidays,
expensive,
don't get the new iPhone every year.
Yeah.
Like the discipline to do it day in and day out.
Yeah.
And make those sacrifices, I think, is what makes the difference. And it can also shorten the time frame from, say, I don't know, 5 years to 3 years kind of thing. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think that a lot of people say, oh, you don't have to sacrifice a lot to, you know, like have a house or invest or whatever it is. But realistically, you do. Like it depends on when you want to actually achieve your goal. Like it depends on when you actually want to buy the house. So if you haven't got any money in your home deposit, but you want to get a home in 2 years, you're definitely going to have sacrifices. Yeah. That's just the reality of living in Australia and wanting to actually buy a home, because it's not something that's cheap. It's not a car that's $10,000. It's tens of thousands of dollars that you actually need to save. And whether that be, you know, I know people say like, oh, like you don't have to sacrifice, you know, having a coffee out at takeaway. But if you think about it, that can, like if you put that money into your home deposit, every cent and dollar does add up. I know a lot of people really hate that saying, but
yeah, it does. And then I feel like on the other side of the spectrum, along with like the sacrifice, you also have to work like harder as well. Like for myself personally, I went to the mines for 3 years because I knew if I kind of put all of that in like 3 years working there, I could save up a good deposit. So it's also like thinking about your current working conditions and whether or not maybe you can get a second job, or maybe like work somewhere else. I mean, going to the mines is pretty extreme, but it's kind of like...
And not a lot of people can do that when they don't live in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like it's just like, obviously you want to save, but then you can also see whether or not you can actually increase your income somehow. Yeah. Because we've both worked like multiple jobs at a single time.
And like I'm doing it now. We're both doing it now. Yeah. I work full time and doing YouTube. Yeah. Because I want that extra money, not for a home, for like other things. But yeah, I agree. And that actually was a little bit further down on our list.
Oh, was it?
Okay. It was a side hustle, like creating extra income, a side hustle or getting a second job, even if it's for a short amount of time, for a year or two. Like that short period of time will be beneficial to you in the long term.
Yeah. Angie's made the list, so I'm kind of just like, I'm just adding on whatever you're saying.
Yeah, that's okay. We like to have a little conversation between ourselves. Yeah. But I think also as well is, you have to make sacrifices and you have to be super disciplined, but alongside that, you also need to reward yourself. Yeah, 100%. Because if you're constantly being in deficit and like being super frugal, you're going to lose motivation as well.
Yeah, and then you do get into like a negative mindset. Yeah. Where you like kind of like deliberate, like should I get this coffee? Yeah. Like you don't want to like, I mean, I wouldn't go that deep personally.
Oh, neither.
Because then you just
I bought shoes the other day.
Yeah.
I bought a pair of boots because I had gotten to my emergency savings goal. Like I saved up $5,000, which was towards the end of my goal. So I wanted to reward myself. So you do need to reward yourself too, but just not all the time.
Yeah, even if it extends it like 6 months, if you can live a better life during that time, then I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I agree. You got to look after you as well as your bank account as well. But we have a fair few other videos on my channel too about how ways that you can actually save money in your everyday life. Yeah. So I'll link those up in the top here and also down in the description as well if you want to know how we have actually saved tens of thousands of dollars with our everyday lifestyle and bills too. Yeah. You've probably heard in other videos or from financial advisors or from whoever it is that you need to save for a 20% house deposit. I disagree.
I mean, I thought that was true for the longest time. Same. Especially like Barefoot Investor, like I feel like everyone's read that book and
he pushes for 20%. He says it. Like obviously it is the ideal and it's the most logical, but it's not the most realistic. Yeah. We're all about realism on this channel.
Yeah, and just to give like context, like for us, we did save up 20% deposits, which we could have used for this house we're in now. But if we were to do that, then we would have like only a couple of $1,000s in the bank. So we wouldn't have been able to furnish the house, would have no emergency fund, nothing to fall back on if, you know, things were to happen.
Like if the oven broke down, we wouldn't have had enough money to actually replace the oven. It didn't break down, but like you never know until you actually get into the home. Because if you buy it and you move in and you then realize that you actually want to refurbish or change doors or door handles or floorboards or paint or whatever you want to do, those things cost quite a lot of money. Yeah. So you still need to have a bit of a fallback after you've saved up your home deposit, especially for your conveyancer, insurance, building and pests. Like, you actually need a couple $1,000s for that.
Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to cover that unless we put it on top of the mortgage as well.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't actually realise that when they are saving for the home deposit. Their mindset is, well, this money is purely just for the deposit. It's not for anything else on top. And they don't take that into consideration when saving.
Yeah.
So you do need to think about those while you're saving for your home deposit.
Yeah.
So we put down 10%.
Yeah. And I mean, like, we could have pushed it out. We could have saved for another 2 years and have the 20% and the extra for like an emergency. But I guess after saving for 5 years,
kind of got over it.
Kind of just got over it. So it's like, oh, whatever. So there definitely are like trade-offs for doing a smaller deposit.
Yeah.
Because you do have to pay the LMI, which varies from like $5,000 to $20,000.
Yeah.
From memory, depending on the cost of the house.
Yeah.
And that usually goes into the mortgage unless you pay for that.
Yeah.
So then you're also paying interest on the life
that
cycle of the LMI, which might end up being like $30,000.
Yeah.
Like, it's usually like 3 times the amount.
Yeah.
So I guess you just have to be aware that like that is one of the major downsides.
Yeah. And
the repayments are a little bit higher as well.
Yeah. And I think that you also need to be aware of like any first home buyer schemes that are going on. I'm really sorry, our cat's playing in the background. Any first home buyer schemes that are going on. So we didn't have to pay stamp duty.
Yeah.
So stamp duty is a cost to the government, or that you have to pay to the government for buying a home.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to pay that because we bought a home for under $600,000 here in Victoria, in Metro Victoria. Whereas if you bought, I think it was between 600 and 700,000, then you pay like a little bit of stamp duty. And then if you bought a house for even more, you had to pay the whole stamp duty.
Yeah.
And stamp duty is like a tax. It's not like a tax. It's like
it's kind of just like a sales tax, I think.
Yeah, like a sales tax for buying something that's really expensive. And that can be tens of thousands of dollars as well. So you need to keep that into consideration too when saving up for your house deposit. So
yeah, and I think there's also there's other grants for like when you build a house, a brand new house, or buy a brand new house.
I think it's like $10,000 or something like that you'll get off your home loan.
Yeah, and then I think also if you move like more rural in the States, or more regional rather, I think there's other ones.
There's
I'm
heaps
pretty
of
sure
them.
there's like
heaps of them for rural and regional.
Yeah.
But there's less for metro.
Yeah. But maybe it's just worth like talking to a mortgage broker.
Because they're free.
And they're free as well. So, and maybe like a financial planner, if you have the time and money for that, just to see whether or not it might be best for you to have a lesser deposit.
Yeah.
If you don't have the time to save for 20%.
Yeah.
But it definitely is possible. Like, my sister bought her apartment with a 5% deposit as well.
My friend.
Yeah.
My friend did as well.
So there are other options. It's not like always 20%, because ideally that's what you would want in a perfect world, but
we don't live in a perfect world.
But realistically, it's like, it's, you know.
Like, yeah, and especially if you are buying like an older home, like you usually want to do like even little tweaks to the home.
Yeah.
And you just want to have that cushion of an emergency fund just in case something was to happen. Because the responsibility is yours once you've stepped into, like once you've signed the contract, that home is yours and you're responsible for every payment.
Yeah.
And everything that goes with that house. So it's always good to have that cushion of money with you as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so when you are actually saving up your money for the house deposit, you need a high interest rate savings account.
Yep.
And at this present time, on the 4th of September 2021, Westpac Bank has a 3% saving account, which is pretty good considering most of the other banks are at about 1.25%. So while it's not a lot of, like, you don't really get a lot back with that percentage.
Is it 3%?
3%.
That sounds like way too high.
That's what I googled it, and that's what it said.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So that is actually really good considering a lot of the time it's only 1% or 1.25%.
Yeah.
So you need to do your research and even just like have a bit of a look at different bank accounts that it doesn't necessarily have to be your main one. It's probably better if it is actually a separate bank account that's not easily accessible, but that's something that you will need to have a look at as well when saving any money for your home deposit.
Yeah, and it's like just one of those like easy wins.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to be saving for 5 years, you may as well get the like compounded interest during that time, even though if it's not like major.
It still helps.
Any
money is helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
So about a year ago, we also made a video about buying our first home. And a couple of months ago, we made a second one as well. So if you were interested in actually the process of how to buy a house, because you may have just decided that you want to purchase one, but you're not actually sure about the procedure or the things to do beforehand or during. So I'll actually leave those videos linked up the top and down the bottom as well, because I think that I'm not going to like toot our own horn, but I think that they are actually really good, coming from people who have just bought their own home. And we're really open and honest about what we purchased our home for and the deposit that we had and all the different steps and procedures that we had to do to actually purchase our own home.
Yeah, it's pretty much just like a 45-minute conversation with us.
Talking about how we
went through it, yeah.
And like the highs and lows and things that you might struggle with as well, because it is a pretty big mental game too. It's not something that's super easy, but it's also really rewarding as well at the end of the day. Yeah, it can be a challenge. It can be a challenge, but as long as you're willing to... But it's worth it though. It is so worth it, yeah. And some people might disagree and like, you know, I know I follow an influencer online and she says that she will never ever buy a home unless she could pay for the whole thing by cash, which I think is pretty cool. Like everyone's allowed to have their own opinion. Yeah. And you know, renting, I don't see any issue with renting because you don't actually have to fork out, you know, the home deposit or any damages unless caused by you. Yeah, so, I think renting gets such a bad name in Australia. It's because it's a cultural thing. Yeah. Buying a home is such a cultural thing in Australia because I don't know why. When it's so like it is definitely achievable nowadays, but it's become... I think it's just like a part of Australian culture almost. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Especially like parents and then their parents would have been like, why aren't you buying a home? But yeah. Is that it? I think that's it. Okay. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks, Lewis, for coming on to another video yet again. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and feel free to share it online as well so then we can get our opinions and information and our conversations out into the world. Yeah, and feel free to share your tips on saving a house deposit because I'm sure we've missed others like we've maybe done, but... Maybe we could do like a part 2 for this video. Yeah, of course. Down the track or something. Yeah, so leave any questions or comments or anything down below and we'd be more than happy to do a number 2. I mean, okay. I'm keeping that in. To do a part 2. To do a part 2 of this video. I don't know you. But yeah, please make sure that you do leave comments down below. Happy to have conversations down in the comments section, as well as building our own little community down there as well, so we can all share our thoughts and opinions. Yep. So thanks for coming again on my channel, Lewis. Thank you so much to the Oodie for partnering up with us on this video. We really appreciate it. I will leave the discount code in the description bar if you would like to purchase yourself a fluffy, soft Oodie. I know what I'm wearing tonight. Yeah, me too, because it's cold here in Victoria. Yeah. All right, we will see you in a video sometime in the very near future. Bye, guys. See ya. So when you're actually saving up that money for your home deposit, you actually need a high interest rate saving account, which at this moment in time, so it's the 4th of September 2021, Westpac